Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. A total crash and burn scenario, folks. Nancy Pelosi's January 6th committee is officially a complete flop. Of course, once again, all the hype for nothing, all the primetime segments, millions of dollars in production value, and millions of dollars in advertising, and in the end, it accomplished nothing. Well, it accomplished nothing in their stated mission, which was to take down Donald Trump and to save democracy. But it did actually accomplish something else. It made Donald Trump more popular. You guys are not gonna believe this. We have the data post-January 6th commission, post-hearings, and it is a brutal, and I mean absolutely brutal, wake-up call for all of these dishonest Democrats. They are livid, seething with rage, as even post-January 6th and post-January 6th witch hunt, Donald Trump is becoming more powerful and more popular, and even CNN is reporting it, which had a very predictable reaction. So we got some stuff to get into, folks. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. All right, folks, so we got to start off with the narrative first. What was the narrative of the January 6, 2021 insurrection? The narrative was that Donald Trump organized and orchestrated a vile crime to overthrow the US government and to install himself as a dictator of the United States and to undo hundreds of years of American democracy. That's the narrative. Of course, Hillary Clinton keeps pushing the same garbage. Hillary Clinton writes, "We are standing on the precipice of losing our democracy." That's what they keep telling you. And so, of course, what they're getting at is vote for us, or the tyrant Republicans will take over under the leadership of that fascist Donald Trump and his fascist henchman Ron DeSantis. That's what they want to convince voters of, except not exactly working. We have this data from a Fox News poll from June 10th to June 13th, surveying only registered voters. And keep in mind, Fox News polls are actually some of the most left-wing biased polls out there. People think, oh, Fox News, it must be a Republican poll. Let's just say the Fox News polls are Joe Biden's best friends. But as you see over here, when it comes to the idea of preserving democracy, Republicans nationwide, in a Democrat oversampled poll from a Democrat polling outlet that is Fox News, the American electorate prefers Republicans at a +1 lead on the issue of preserving democracy. And let me repeat a very important factor. In a Democrat oversampled poll, friends, years and years and years and years of Donald Trump's a fascist who's going to end American democracy, that basically being the main focal point of every leftist argument and everything that all the leftist talking heads have been saying forever. And it's all culminated with this, with American voters trusting the preservation of democracy more so under Republican leadership than Democrat. And that's after the January 6th sham hearing. If we could create some sort of image or imagery to visualize how Democrats are feeling right now as they're listening to this, or if they were listening to this, what am I saying? If we have it, this is what Democrats look like right now. Their entire worldview is being shattered. How could this possibly be is probably what they're telling themselves. Well, it's very simple. You can only cry wolf too many times until you lose the trust of your community members. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. The data at this point is unequivocal. Poll shows that majority of Americans believe committee is biased as ratings tumble. No matter what House Speaker Nancy Pelosi thought that the select committee or the unselect committee would do for her and Democrats politically, it appears that it has backfired. An NBC News poll found that the percentage of Americans who say former President Donald Trump was responsible for what happened at the US Capitol dropped down to 45%. By comparison, 52% of respondents said Trump was responsible back in January 2021. In addition, the percentage of Americans in the new poll who said Trump was not really responsible jumped to 35%, up from 29% in January. And another poll from Harvard Capps Harris poll showed that 58% of voters believe the commission is biased against Republicans. Americans want an examination of the riots over the summer and the origins of the virus over investigating January 6th. Co-director of the Harvard Capps Harris poll survey, Mark Penn, said, "The voters voters reject the Pelosi move to toss Republicans off of the committee and see it now as just a partisan exercise. I think there's a better word to describe this instead of partisan exercise. What is that word? Let me think.
Witch hunt.
It's a witch hunt, and everybody can see it. In fact, nearly 60% of the population can see it, which means that pretty much everybody who's honest can see it at this point, and the only people that are left are the vote blue no matter who crowd, who will continue to refuse living in reality. And speaking of lefties and the vote blue no matter who crowd living in reality, or rather their refusal to live in reality, they're having a very hard time accepting this most recent CNN article. Donald Trump has become more popular since the January 6th Capitol attack. January 6th did little damage to Trump over the long term. Analysts like me remarked over and over again during Trump's time in office that he was one of, if not the most unpopular presidents. He left office with the lowest approval rating of any president at the end of his first term, 39%, and the highest disapproval, 58%. Those numbers are complete bogus, but anyways, we'll move on from that, thanks in part to a late swoon following the events of January 6, 2021. Today, Trump's polling position with Americans overall is one of his best, and he remains the frontrunner for the 2024 Republican nomination. The former president's favorability rating stands at 43% with an unfavorable rating of 52. Again, bogus numbers, but for CNN numbers, I mean, it is what it is. 43% may as well be 55. That makes for a net favorability rating of -9 points, not particularly high, but then Trump was never particularly popular. He averaged a net approval rating during his presidency of -12 points. A 3-point jump in net popularity may not seem like much, but his current net favorability rating is higher than 86% of his net approval ratings during his presidency. If nothing else, it's 10 points higher than his net approval rating at the end of his time in office. In 2024 matchups against President Joe Biden, Trump is running a point or two ahead of Biden on average. It wouldn't be particularly impressive for most politicians to be leading within the margin of error a president with low 40s approval rating. Again, CNN gets it wrong. Joe Biden is in the 30s, but let's move on. But being barely ahead or tied with Biden would have been a revelation for Trump in 2020. He managed to lead in only about 1% of all national polls taken in 2020, and in none that met CNN's standards for publication. Yeah, of course, because Rasmussen and Trafalgar polls are much too accurate for fake news CNN's standards of publication. In raw numbers, Trump's been ahead in more polls against Biden over the past few months than he was for the entirety of 2020. And man, oh man, could you imagine how painful it was for CNN's chief elections analyst to write this stuff? And for CNN viewers and readers to be reading this stuff? I can smell salt from their salty tears in the air. It's absolutely glorious. What a massive backfire. What a massive political miscalculation, and that's exactly what it was. Again, it's something that we predicted accurately. Again, not because we're geniuses, but because it was obvious. It was obvious that this whole thing was going to backfire. It was lopsided. It wasn't a balanced, fair legal hearing. It was an anti-Trump campaign, and people can see right through it. I mean, calling something bipartisan doesn't make it so, and most people can see right through the BS. And going back to that number that Republicans are leading +1 on the voter issue of preserving democracy, again, is not surprising. Democrats have spent the last couple of years wanting to abolish the Electoral College, change voting rules to benefit them, add DC and Puerto Rico statehood to stack the Senate, stack the Supreme Court. And when the Supreme Court makes a decision that they don't agree with, they riot and destroy things and show up in front of Supreme Court justices' homes and intimidate them. Now, once again, if you're a common sense, honest American voter, which is the Democratic side? Well, it's certainly not the Democrats. Ironically enough. That's what I got for you guys, though. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.